Welcome back to this episode of Clout is Not Currency podcast. I'm your host, Blessing Makosha, aka Big Money B, because I'm focused on cheddar, I'm focused on cheese, and I don't let a bum chick get a touch up on me. I hope you're looking forward to this episode. On this podcast, we have conversations about worth, value, and influence. This podcast is powered by Planet Blessing, and the video of all of our episodes is available on YouTube and also on Patreon for the full extended edit. So make sure that you head to the No Ghostwriter YouTube channel, and if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe. And if you want the full extended ad-free version of the podcast on video and audio, then make sure that you head to our Patreon, sign up to the No Ghostwriter tier. You get access to exclusive weekly content and behind the scenes content and virtual access to all of our live events. So make sure that you check out No Ghostwriter. It's bringing integrity back to hip hop and breaking down rap for the rappers and putting you on to the best of the independent and underground sound. Okay, so before we get into the topics in this week's episode, I wanted to discuss a topic right at the beginning, and that is Doja Cat and her recent interview with Rolling Stone. So Doja Cat recently covered Rolling Stone, and this was a really big moment in her career because we haven't really had such a candid look into Doja, who she is, what's her story, and yeah, basically what's she about. And I really enjoyed reading this article because I feel like the thing that I took away the most was the fact that she said that she's a rapper and that she has been a rapper first, and that she actually started out rapping before she moved into like singing and all of the other things that she does. So that really stood out to me because oftentimes Doja has had this conversation come up where people want to say, you know, is she really a rapper? And, you know, I've seen people's conversations saying like, isn't this the same thing we did to Nicki Minaj at the start of her career? So if you don't remember, at the start of her career, Nicki Minaj experimented with different types of pop sounds. She definitely pioneered what is now known as hip pop, which is that genre and lane that Doja Cat is currently going nuclear in, where you have rapping but over pop production. And as hip hop became the mainstream genre, that is now mainstream. So when people are criticizing Doja, or not necessarily criticizing, perhaps more so saying, look, if you are a rapper, you don't act like one. This is where people are saying this is basically the same thing you did to Nicki, i.e. that you are unable to recognize versatility and appreciate versatility. The versatility conversation actually did come up in a recent upload we've put onto No Ghostwriter on whether men are always going to control women in hip hop. So make sure that you check that one out so you can share your thoughts and opinions on versatility. But this thing, Doja not being a rapper, is very addressed in this interview, and she calls anyone who says that she's not a rapper delusional. I also found that in this article, I got the sense that Doja Cat has basically little to no intention to tell us more about her personal life, her stories, what she's going through, you know, her breakups, her makeups. These just don't seem to be the kinds of things that are on Doja's mind. And she specifically says in relation to, you know, what content she's going to put into her songs, I'm not going to turn my life into a Broadway show. So Doja isn't really trying to tell you the Doja story in the way that I think we would like to hear it. I think this interview shows that she's a modern pop star. She wants to be a pop star. She wants to have fun, do the fashion, make her money, have a good time, and above all, she wants to perform. It seems that the theatric element of the art is really what Doja's there for, and you really got that sense. I think though, the kind of artist she is, and claiming rapper, this is where we have to start talking, because rap skill isn't just technical ability. In my opinion, I think that rappers are an embodiment of a certain candid spirit and a candidness about yourself, to state and say who you are, put your feet firmly in the ground and say, look, I am this person. And I feel like with Doja, although Doja is giving us elements of rap and rapper, I don't know whether she's barring us to death. Like, I haven't seen Doja in a freestyle. I haven't seen Doja in a cypher. I haven't seen Doja Cat spitting bars about Doja Cat, like who she is, and posturing in relation to other rappers. Like, I haven't really seen that from Doja, and because I haven't seen that, I completely understand why people are looking at her and saying, but is she a rapper though? I think it's less to do with the versatility, because I think that we've moved beyond that. I think we understand that rappers can be versatile a la Nicki Minaj, but I think that what people are saying is from Doja is we haven't had that, or that real authentic rawness. And given that Doja says in this interview, you know, you're not getting more than what you're currently getting, I think we kind of have to just put a pin in that and put it there. I also wanted to talk about the fact that Doja addressed her relationship with Dr. Luke. So we've talked about Doja Cat and Dr. Luke in previous episodes of Clout is Not Currency. And she essentially says that, look, he may have been credited on some stuff up to this point, but going forward, it's all, I want it to be, you know, a different situation. And she says she doesn't need him. Needing him and him contractually needing to be credited on the things you create are two different things. If Doja is in a deal that's not great, she's in a deal that's not great. And I think that is gonna potentially scupper whatever plans she has to like keep Dr. Luke off of any future content. But she addressed it, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm not convinced by how she addressed it, because I think there's what Doja wants to say and then there's what she can say. And I think with the Rolling Stone article, we definitely got what Doja can say and not necessarily what she wants to say. Another few things that were addressed in the article is Doja's upbringing and background as a biracial girl. Essentially, Doja grew up like a lot of biracial kids, you know, who are only living with one parent. They got predominantly one culture. So Doja predominantly was saturated in a very sort of hippie, free-spirited culture, much like Tracee Ellis Ross. She also lived on a commune in a collective community, and she's always had a free spirit. And I think the thing that riled up some of the kittens in this Rolling Stone article is that there is a quote or a reference there from Doja's former babysitter, who said that allegedly, according to the article, it's written as if Doja begged to have her hair flat ironed. But if you actually look at the TikTok video that Doja's babysitter posted, and I'll insert it into the podcast so you can listen.
And I was telling that story to talk about just how like free-spirited she was. And you somehow twisted that into, I believe the quote was that Amla used to beg me to flat iron her hair as her babysitter. The fuck? And while yes, we did briefly touch on how hard it must have been to be raised by a single mother, I talked about how our mothers connected as two single moms who were kind of hippies and free spirits and what our childhoods were like. And I touched on the fact that it must have been hard to be one of the only Black kids in the entire community. You somehow took my words and turned it into that. And that's all you put in. No other context. So, yeah, I have a fucking bone to pick. I think it's absurd. and I'm not happy about it. And I should have learned my lesson the first time. And actually, I thought I was cautious because I asked the person who wanted to interview me prior to the interview if Amala, Doja, knew that you were asking me to take part in this interview. And I should have known right there.
Doja's babysitter says this has been completely misinterpreted. You know, Doja was just wild. She didn't necessarily dislike being a black girl. And I think Doja's blackness is a topic of conversation because of all that stuff with her being in those chat rooms and talking to, allegedly being in like incel white supremacist chat rooms, and it getting a bit weird. And Doja's also had some songs that use slurs, and she's used different types of racial and homophobic slurs, but she herself doesn't accept that that makes her inherently problematic, and she's pushed back against that. So I think this article did well to start to touch on some of the contentious, controversial elements of Doja Cat, but I feel like at the end of this, I don't feel like I know Doja Cat. I feel like this is the most expansive Doja Cat interview we've had so far, but I don't feel like I know Doja Cat in that way. But hey, I could be wrong. I want to know what you guys think. So let me know. Check out that Rolling Stone article. Make sure you use hashtag clout is not currency to discuss. And I want to know your opinions. Do you feel like this article is problematic? I know a lot of kittens who are fans of Doja Cat are over this article. They don't like it. They think it misrepresents her. I personally thought it was fine. I think it was a good thing to have that article because I don't necessarily feel like I've had a chance to get to know Doja Cat deeply. But I do feel like above all, it hasn't fully plugged all the Doja Cat gaps. Like I still feel like Doja Cat is a little bit enigmatic. You can tell that she doesn't want to take things too seriously and she just wants to have fun. Hence all of the like shit posting on Twitter and all of that stuff. Doja's just here to have a good time. But I think that at the end of it, the rapper question is still open. So like I said, share your opinions, use hashtag clout is not currency, and I want to hear your thoughts. I want to thank our sponsor, Surfshark VPN. So Surfshark VPN ensures that you are protected as you navigate the internet, and the good thing about it is that it protects all of your information. So that's down to your sensitive banking information, things like your passwords, your browsing history, and so on. But another benefit is that it has a location switcher. So if you need to, you can switch your location in order to be able to access content or other things that you need to access from a different geographical location. And if you travel a lot, which I know is currently quite hard with the pandemic, but if you travel a lot or you're not at home, you can still get all your creature comforts from home if you use Surfshark VPN. So they have an offer right now for 83% off your first 3 months, and also you get a 30-day money-back guarantee. Check that out. To use it, use the link in the description of this episode, or use my code Blessing Makosha. That's BLESSING MUKOSHA for your access to the 83% off discount. So I hope you enjoy that. It's got the 30-day money-back guarantee. So thank you again to Surfshark for sponsoring this episode, and now we'll get into the content. So today's episode is going to be very interesting. We have a guest today, and we're going to be talking about the rapper Russ's recent comments about how artists should maintain their independence in the music industry. And we're also going to be getting into Lewis Hamilton, or Sir Lewis Hamilton, shall I say, and how his treatment after losing the Formula One final says about how Black Britons who are achieving the upper echelons of success are treated, and if there is a general trend to want to humble Black Britons who are breaking records, making history, and disrupting the status quo. So I hope you're looking forward to the episode. Make sure that you stick around and keep watching or listening. So today we have a guest joining us. So I'm going to allow her to introduce herself. So hello, Ray.
Hey guys.
So I wanted you to tell the people so who you are, where they can find you, and what they're going to find when they do check you out.
Okay. Well, hey guys, my name is Ray. I'm a music journalist. I'm also the editor of a music platform called Industry Me, and I'm also a talent manager. In terms of where you can find me, I'm on all socials, so Twitter, Instagram, the usual. I'm on TikTok now as well, you know.
Okay.
Up to date with the kids. And in terms of what you'll find when you Google me, probably some article or review that I've written. That's the most likely thing you're going to see.
And everybody make sure that's at Ray Sang XOXO. So what
everything.
On every page. And I love that, by the way, because when I was checking you out, I was like, oh, thank God, everything is in order. Because I find it so stressful when someone's got one username in one place and then it's like Loves Horses 23 on like another one and you're like stressed out. So
yeah.
I like that. Nice and slick. And is it deliberately poetic that you've got Sang in your username and that you're a music babe?
Not at all. It's just short form of my actual surname. So it was just one of those like things, but no, it's not intentional at all.
I thought it was like that. Well, it still works beautifully. So today I thought we can tackle the first topic because it's a music industry related topic. So, and I think that it'll be great and very refreshing to have an alternative perspective or another perspective on this. So the rapper Russ, who I know a lot of people have clowned Russ in the past, and I know Russ has had his ups and downs with the industry, but he was giving some advice for artists, and the general headline of the advice was, rather than go through a record label and sign a 360, secure your own finance with a bank and maintain your own ownership rights. So he was saying this because he recently released an album called CHOMP 2, and he was discussing with Charlemagne on Power 105 on The Breakfast Club how he'd been able to fund that without a record label, because Russ is notorious for being an independent artist. And he explained that more or less what a record label is a bank but with terrible rates. And that was an interesting way of putting things. So I thought that it'd be great to open up this conversation with you, Ray, and basically think about and talk about, is this generally, you know, a good piece of advice? Because Russ did face some backlash. One Twitter user said this is horrible advice for the sole reason that he's in the top 1% of earners in music. He's already making money, and a new artist can't inherently make that much, therefore guarantee that much back to a bank. But if you sign with a label, you don't recoup, you don't go bankrupt. So that, I just thought, which side of the line do you fall on around this topic, and generally how artists should maintain their independence?
I don't think he's offering bad advice. I just think that he's failing to recognize his privilege. He's speaking from a place of privilege now as an artist that's already kind of built a platform. Doing that as a new artist, completely different kettle of fish, and that's why he's going wrong. I don't think it's necessarily a bad advice to tell people that you don't necessarily need to sign with a label, because I think the one thing that social media has done is kind of given a lot of people access that they wouldn't have had before. It's kind of like opened up the global network. It's opened up, I guess, just accessibility in general. So I think in that regard, yes, okay, you may not need a major label, but at the same time, as the tweet said, yeah, he's in the top 1% of earners in music. So of course, doing this with this album this time around with the platform that he already has, of course it's going to be a completely different ballgame to a new artist. So I think, yeah, I don't think he's seeing the privilege that he has, or acknowledging the privilege that he has when he's giving this advice, and that's my main issue.
Yeah, so the privilege point I think is important, because when we have these conversations about 360s, and I have definitely hold my hands up and say that I'm very pro artists maintaining their ownership rights. I think that we do have to remember that it's that similar thing people talk about in investment and getting seed funding, right, for startups. It's all well and good if you're a, you know, respectable looking, you know, white man. People are gonna feel more inclined to give you money, give you funding, give you a shot. But when you're trying to push a product or a product idea and you're a black woman, or you're from a minority, or you just don't fall into these conventional privileges, all of a sudden it's a whole different thing. So telling people to turn down opportunities for investment, it's tricky. Like it's not as simple as, you know, keep it all in house. Actually, there's a lot that goes into, you know, making those choices when you don't have the same privilege cards to pull and play. So, but do you think that this is a general theme though, with a lot of this like hip hop hustle advice? So we've seen that this is a big trope right now. Like everybody wants to be a hove. Do you think a lot of this conversation is geared basically towards people with more privilege?
I do, and the reason that I say that is because it even comes down to something that Russ actually said in his interview. He was like, labels are a bank with connections, right?
Right.
If you're at the start of your journey, you don't have those connections. So him in his current position, even looking at the album in and of itself, the album is essentially very features based, right?
Right.
And that's based on him being able to go within his network, even if he didn't know these people directly, and like reach out to them, whether it's via DM, whether it's by reaching out to their managers, however he did it. The fact that he is who he is, a lot of people, when he comes knocking on their door, are not going to say no.
They're going to answer. Yeah. They're going to answer.
Of course they are.
Whereas, yeah.
So, and that's kind of, again, where I feel like he fails to acknowledge the fact that he's built up all of this, not clout, but like, I guess, built up this sense of status. And status is in and of itself is its own currency. So
exactly.
So even if it's not the financials, your network is a currency. Your even your catalog as an artist, the things that you've done previously up until this point, it's all currency. If it's not currency in the monetary sense, it's cultural capital.
Cultural capital, yes, exactly. Cultural capital can get you, and it can get you a very high valuation. And I think maybe what people should do, I mean, anyone should do this with any advice, but especially with what Russ is talking about, I think apply it into, you know, your own context. You know, you can negotiate terms with a label. You can, you know, put yourself forward. I mean, it's not easy, and definitely artists who have secured, you know, quite favorable deals, especially ones that basically primarily deal with distribution, you know, those ones are hard to get but can be quite lucrative. You know, I think Nicki Minaj has one of those, Nipsey Hussle's got one of those. I don't know about Wale, though I know Wale tends to have some sort of like, but there are artists out there who have gone, I always think about Frank Ocean though. It's not really about a distribution, it's more about him finessing. But the point is, record labels can get finessed too, okay? And if you're coming with solid cultural capital, I think that it's reasonable for you to say, look, I'm not trying to sign away everything, but I think that this could be mutually beneficial, and just being about your business.
That's the one thing he did say though that I do like wholly agree with, in terms of like being able to build that up before you get into a label situation, because as you mentioned, it's all about what you can negotiate, and you're not going to have the leverage to negotiate the type of deal that you want until you have built up some momentum. That is the only piece of advice that I think stands regardless of wherever you're.
I think it balances the topic, because it is about putting that time. No, but thank you so much. That wraps up our conversation for today. This has been a really great podcast, and I feel like we've discussed lots of interesting topics and perspectives. You are welcome back anytime, and I hope everybody, you check out Ray. Make sure you check out, she's actually 1/3 of a podcast herself, so I thought before you go, you could give yourselves a little plug, so make sure that people can go follow.
Indeed, I am 1/3 of the Rhymeshe Podcast. We are a female-led music and culture podcast. You can find us on all streaming platforms, and in terms of our socials, you can find us on Instagram at Rhymeshe, and you can find us on Twitter at Rhymeshe Pod.
Yay. All right. Thank you. Well, thank you for being on. It's been a pleasure, like I've said, and I'll catch you on another episode, maybe. I don't know. Okay.
Hopefully. I mean, I'm gonna be glad to come back and be back.
No, I'm definitely needing more. Like, I want more UK faces and voices on the podcast. So we're definitely gonna be reaching out again. But all right, girl, I'll holler at you.
Bye.
So thank you for listening to this episode of Clout is Not Currency. I hope that this episode has inspired you to think differently about value, worth, and influence, and empowered you in some way. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you follow the podcast on your streaming platform of choice and leave us a review. Make sure that you also follow _ghostwriter for more content, rap videos, live streams, and to find out more about our monthly rap cypher. I've been your host, Blessy Makosha, aka Big Money B, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.